Hi again, pre-algebra students. This video is going to work on section 4.3 on multiplying and dividing fractions. We're going to split this video into two sections, the multiplying part and then the dividing part. Okay, so let's start with multiplying fractions. To multiply two fractions, you multiply the numerators together and the denominators together. So you multiply straight across. So if you have a over b times c over d, you do a times c over b times d. It's important to note you do not need a least or a common denominator. That's for when we get to adding and subtracting fractions. So let's do some examples. These examples can be found on your handout again, so make sure you have that out. 2/7 times 3/5. So to multiply fractions, you don't need a common denominator, just multiply straight across. 2 times 3 and 7 times 5, which gives you 6 over 35. You'll notice you want to make sure that's reduced completely. Nothing goes into both 6 and 35, so that is simplified, and that is the answer. So for letter B, 1/11 times 1/3. To multiply, you multiply straight across. So 1 times 1 and 11 times 3 gives us 1 over 33. And 2/3 times 4/7 for letter C. Multiply straight across. 2 times 4 is 8, and 3 times 7 is 21. Make sure that's reduced. Nothing goes into both 8 and 21. So again, to multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. But what do you do? They do get a little bit harder. What do you do when there's some simplifying that's involved? So let's look at letter A here. 3/4 times 8/11. And I'll use the board up here to show you. If you multiply straight across, let me make this a little bit bigger for you. If you multiply straight across, 3 times 8 is 24, and 4 times 11 is 44. The problem with that is then you have to simplify it. What goes into both 24 and 44? Well, 2 does, 3 doesn't, I think 4 does. So 4 goes into 24 6 times, and 4 goes into 4 goes into 44 11 times. So the answer reduces to 6 over 11. But now we have this additional harder step that we have to try and figure out how to reduce it. So instead, there's also a shortcut way to do this. And that shortcut says you can simplify any numerator with any denominator before you multiply. So for example, 3 is a numerator, 4 is a denominator. You can't simplify a 3 with a 4. There's nothing that goes into both of them. 3 and 11 cannot be simplified because there's nothing that goes into both 3 and 11 besides 1. 8 and 11 can't be reduced. Nothing goes into both 8 and 11. But if you look at 4 and 8, they have a common factor of 4 and 2. You want to use the largest one. 4 goes into 4 one time, and 4 goes into 8 twice. So you can reduce any numerator with any denominator. Now multiply straight across. 2 times 3 is 6, and 1 times 11 gives you the 11. Okay, so that saves you this simplifying step in the middle. All right, let's look at letter B. -6/13 times -26 over 30. If you were to do this the long way, multiply straight across, 6 times 26 is a huge number, 170 something maybe, and 13 times 30 is 390 or something. Then you'd have to try to figure out how to simplify it, which would take a lot of work. So instead we can simplify first, which will save us a lot of work and make it a lot easier. So you'll see the 6 and 13, nothing goes into both of those, but 6 and 30 have a common factor of 2, 3, and 6. So you want to use the 6. 6 goes into 6 once, and 6 goes into 30 5 times. So those can be reduced. 26 and 5 can't be reduced, but 13 and 26 can. 13 goes into 13 once, and 13 goes into 26 2 times, because 13 times 2 is 26. Now multiply straight across. First you'll see it's a negative times a negative, which we know is a positive, so you don't have to worry about that. 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 5 is 5. So the answer is 2/5. So So that simplifying first, when you multiply, can save you lots of time. You'll see that the PowerPoint here shows it a little bit differently. They break the 8 down into 2 times 2 times 2, which is fine, and the 4 down into 2 times 2 times 11. So the 2's will both reduce. If you reduce both 2's, 2 times 2 is 4, it's the same thing as reducing the 4 that goes into both like we did there. Multiply straight across and you get 6 over 11. Okay, let's look at letter C. For letter C, we have 3 different fractions multiplied together. So the same rule applies. Any numerator can be reduced with any denominator. So 2 doesn't go into 7, 2 doesn't go into 15, but 2 and 8 have a common factor of 2. So 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 4 times. Now let's look at the 3. The 3 and the 4 can't be reduced. The 3 and the 7 can't be reduced. But 3 and 15 have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 15 5 times. Now let's go to the 14. 14 and 7 have a common factor of 7. Or you could do 14 and 4, but 14 and 5 you could not reduce. Let's start with the 7 and the 14. 7 goes into 7 one time, 7 goes into 14 2 times. Now we still have a 2. Can the 2 be reduced with the 5? No. But the 2 and the 4 can be reduced again. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 4 twice. So multiply straight across, because now we have all 1's. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Times 5 is 10. And you get 1 over 10. Now let's say you forgot, and you didn't do this last reducing, and you left it as a 2 and a 4. If you did that, it would be 1 times 1 times 2, which would have been 2, and 4 times 5 is 20. You'd get 2 over 20 if you forgot to do that last one, which is okay. Hopefully you can still see that you need to reduce it. 2 goes in there once, 2 goes in there 10 times. So even if you miss one, it should still make it easier to something that's easier to reduce. Okay, so that's letter C. Why don't you try and do letter D on the paper? And do that one for home or for your ticket into class. So go ahead and try letter D now. Pause the video and try that one. Okay, so what do you do if there's all letters? Let's say we have a cubed over b squared times b over a squared. Okay, so what you do is you write it out as a product. A cubed is a times a times a times the b. B squared is b times b, and a squared is a times a. Now we can reduce the numerators with the denominators. As you can see, 2 of the a's would cross out, and 1 of the b's would cross off. So we're left with, in this case, a over b. Okay, so if you're left with letters, write them out to what they look like so you can cross off the common factors. Remember, a over a divided by a is 1, because 2 divided by 2, or 3 divided by 3. Or 4 divided by 4 is 1. Remember, that's one of the division properties we've talked about. All right, so why don't you try to do letter F on your paper? X squared over y times y cubed over x to the 5th. See if you can get that one, and please bring that into class. All right, we have 2 more. What do you do with fractions and exponents? 3/4 cubed means 3/4 times 3/4 times 3/4. Multiply straight across. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So you can write it out every time if you want. Or you can just do 3 cubed is 27. And 4 cubed is 64. Alright, letter B says negative 4/5 squared. That means negative 4/5 times negative 4/5. Or you could do 4 squared is 16, and 5 squared is 25. Don't forget it becomes positive, because a negative squared, or a negative times a negative, is a positive. Alright, so that's the first half of section 4.3 on how to multiply fractions. Please let me know if you have any questions in class. Thank you.